Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Pink Turns Purple. It is her, she, me, your girl, Miss Jennifer Pink. And I am so excited to be doing this telesummit. Like, it is just amazing talking to all these amazing thrivers and getting all the amazing feedback that I'm getting from all of you who are registered. Like, I'm just excited to be able to bring forth this amazing telesummit. For those of you who don't know, maybe somebody shared this video with you and you're like, what is going on? Pink Turns Purple is a telesummit in support of domestic violence awareness. We are all survivors, now thrivers of domestic violence, and we are sharing our story, but we are most importantly sharing how we moved from being a survivor to a thriver. And I know if you've not heard any of it, you're like, what does that mean? Just wait and see, because you'll find out in a minute what exactly that means. But I want us right now to say hello to Thriver Alana. Say hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me here.
Oh no, I'm grateful that you said yes. I'm grateful that so many people said yes, because I'm telling you guys, like, I was just like, is nobody gonna say yes? Like, is this even gonna work? Do people get it? So the fact that there's other people who said yes, who get it, who want to do it, I'm just over the moon grateful. With that being said, of course, if you want to share this with somebody, feel free to forward them the email so that they can see this specific one. Make sure you tell them to register, and they can get all of them no matter when they register. They will get all of the videos sent directly to their inbox. And as always, we would love your monetary support with either a direct donation to Facebook to benefit our organizations, or you can purchase a tea or a tea and book combo to help someone else out as well. And you get a great tea or a book. Right. So without any further ado, let me tell you a little bit about Miss, is it Alana? Am I saying it right? Okay, gotta make sure.
Yes, yep, you are.
Alana is an international best-selling author, intuitive mindset life coach, herbalist, and wellness advocate. Her passion lies with helping others achieve their dreams of a healthy lifestyle and mindset. She is big on making her community a safe space for adults and children to be able to express themselves with no limitations, no limits. Overcoming her battle with health issues like her lupus, depression, failed relationships, divorces, and mental instability, she was able to move forward and find the self-love she deserved to grow in ways unimaginable. Life was not able to hold her back, but it slung her forward to a whole new level. That's that thrive right there, y'all. Alana believes that by sharing her story, she will be able to give the courage to the next woman who may be struggling with where she is in life, building those up in need of just aiding as a stepping stone to find a self-love routine that works for them. Well, without any more talking from me, I want you to take the floor, and I just want you to share with those watching your domestic violence story. Like, what happened?
Okay. So, like I said, my name is Alana, and my story actually, begins where I thought my life was at an end. My whole life, I thought, I was trying to please others, not even thinking about myself, not understanding exactly what self-love was and trying to fit in instead of being, my authentic self and allowing others to see the real me. I was a lost soul with a vicious cycle of depression, like you read, illness, trying to find my way after, I've had multiple domestic violence relationships. And I lost trust in the world. I did not know what to do. And I put myself, in a shell of despair. My life was falling apart and I did not know how to put it back together. So, where my story begins is, my boyfriend, I almost said ex-husband. No, I actually had a couple of those, but that's a different story, another different podcast. My ex-boyfriend at the time tried to kill me. And it was like, it wasn't something that I did. It took a long time for me to actually get over that part, that I actually had no part in it. It was more of, he was extremely jealous. He was possessive. He did not know what it was to be in a relationship with a person. My story began where I came home one day living in Phoenix, Arizona, And I worked in a small city called Awatuki, which was about an hour and a half away. So it would take me that long just to get to work and to come home. And if I was late, you know, he would check my odometer. He would, you know, check my phone to make sure I wasn't calling anyone. He would come up to me and be like, it doesn't take you this long to get from point A to point B. And, you know, that just kept like getting worse and worse and worse. Well, one day I came home from work and I was standing outside talking to my neighbor, which, by the way, was a cute guy. I'm not even gonna lie. You know, he was sitting on the power box that you usually see outside. And he was like holding on to his dog. And I just stopped to say hi because he's always said hi to me. You know, my neighbors were really nice. And he was in a relationship. So it wasn't like he was a single dude outside flaunting himself. He was just a nice guy. So I'm talking to him and I heard, I saw my ex come down the stairs and came around the corner and looked at me. And he was like, he gave me that look and he said, you know, you done fucked up, right? Like, you know, how you hear it in those movies. And I looked at my neighbor and I just kind of looked at my ex, and my ex ran up back up the stairs and went into our apartment and slammed the door. And I just had this crazy feeling like just come all over me. And I said to my neighbor, I was like, if you hear me scream, I need you to call 911. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I said, I just have this feeling something bad is going to happen and I'm going to need your help. And he says, okay. He's like, I'll be outside, but I'll check in on you. I'm like, okay. So I go around and we lived on the second floor. This was a 3-story apartment building. I go around the corner, go up the stairs. And instead of me just walking into my house, I sat on the stairs. You know, thinking back on it, I should have just gotten my car and left because of that bad feeling that I had, but I didn't. You know, I went to my door, sat down for a second, and I took a deep breath and placed both of my hands like over my face, just trying to take a moment of trying to process what I felt and what was actually going to happen. And as soon as I like took that deep breath, my front door goes flying open and my ex goes running out. And I just like saw him and he stopped mid-run, saw me out of the corner of his eye and turned and looked at me. And then 2 seconds later, he reached out and he grabbed me by my hair. I had long braids at the time, and he grabbed me by my braids and he threw me into our front door, and then he threw me into the house, and he turned around and locked all the doors. He picked me up and threw me on the couch, and he just started like swinging on me left and right, screaming and arguing with me and telling me that I was no good, I was a bitch, I was a slut, you know, just everything. And he just kept punching at me in my face, on my arms and my legs. And I could not get him off of me to save my life. You know, I'm trying to scream. He's trying to cover my mouth. I'm, you know, trying to get him off of me. I finally get him to move and he picks me up and he throws me on top of our coffee table, which was all glass. And that shattered. Glass was everywhere. Glass was stuck in my back. It was stuck on my legs. And then he picked me up by my hair, you know, like I was a cave woman, and dragged me into our bedroom and slammed that door and locked it. He threw me up on the bed, and then he tried to cover my face with the pillow so that no one could hear me scream. You know, I'm trying to fight him off of me, and he's still swinging on me, holding the pillow down, trying to suffocate me. And, you know, I'm trying to kick as hard as I can to get him off of me. And I'm able to like maneuver him so I can get up and run to the door. I grab the door, unlock it, and he grabbed me back by my hair, dragged me back into the room and starts beating up on me again. I'm finally able to like push him off. He runs to the door and slides in front of me and stops. And we both sitting there breathing hard, just staring at each other. And something in my head was like, Alana, you need to just knock the shit out of him right now. You know, so I cocked back, punched him one good time right in his mouth, and blood went everywhere. It was on the wall. It was on the door. His lips was like completely busted. And I just stood there and he stood there. We just looked at each other. He walked over to the sink that was in our bathroom. He spit in the sink and he looked at me in the mirror. And my body was like, you need to run like right now. But I was like stuck. Because, you know, when you're in that fight or flight mode, you don't know what it is you're going to do. Your brain's telling you one thing, but your body has a mind of its own. And so I'm standing there just like watching all this happen, but I'm also telling myself to run, you know. So I take off running, run to the front door, unlock it. He chases after me, grabs me again, and starts hitting on me. And I push him off of me, and I run down the stairs, and I bang on my neighbor's door who's underneath me. He opens up the door, looks at me, and I just like ran into it, locked it, and I told him to call 911. So he calls the cops, and my neighbor's telling me to be quiet. This is a different neighbor, by the way, who lives underneath me. He's telling me to be quiet, wait for the cops to show up. And I could hear my ex running around the hallway screaming my name, looking for me. I hear the sirens getting closer and closer and closer. The police show up, knock on the door, and they asked, to speak to me. So I'm talking there, premises, what, I'm like, state of shock. It's we're going to take pictures of you, the apartment, and document all of this. And I said, okay. We walk upstairs, and they go to open my pictures. He said, before I start taking pictures, though, I'm going to need you to go inside and look at yourself. And I'm like, okay, to like figure out what is exactly happening. And I walk inside, and I went into bed and like everywhere, and then walked into the, I think, in that moment, that was me. So the police showed up, knocked on the door, and, we answered it. They asked to speak to me, and I told them, basically not what had happened, but I told them who I was. And they asked if he was still around, and I said, I have no idea. I don't know if he's upstairs. I don't know if he left, but I knew he was outside looking for me. So I went outside with them. They went upstairs to my apartment, and the cop walked inside, looked around, and came out and said that he was not there. The cop said, well, before, we take your statement, we have to take pictures of you and your apartment. But before we take pictures of you, I need you to go inside and look at yourself. And I said, okay. I walked inside, and I had noticed that my living room was all disheveled. There were pillows that were ripped open. The blinds were pulled down off of the wall. There was glass everywhere. There were dishes everywhere. I walked into my bedroom, and then there was more cottons everywhere, from pillows, the comforter, all of that stuff was on the floor. And it just looked like my whole apartment was ransacked. And I walked in to the bathroom to look in the mirror. Like I said, from before, there was still blood in the sink from where he had spit it out at. But as I looked up into the mirror, I saw myself, but I did not really see myself. In that moment, now when I look back at it, that was the cop's way of telling me of looking deeper within myself, to making sure that I am not put in this predicament again, that I am, able to see me for me. But in that moment, that's not what I saw. I saw someone who was broken. I saw someone who, did not know what to do, where to go, or who to speak with, because, I put all my trust and my love into him, yet he did everything against me. He hurt me based off of his own insecurities. As I'm looking at myself, I had a busted lip. I had 2 black eyes. I had a knot on my forehead. I had a giant knot on the back of my head from when he had slammed me up against the wall. And I hit the thermostat. I had bruises all up and down my arms. And so all I could do was basically cry looking at myself, because I've never seen myself in that light before. So I went back into the living room. They started taking their pictures of me. They took pictures of the apartment, and they had me, sign paperwork stating what happened. And then they gave me my copies and told me to file a restraining order against him and to give it to my apartment complex. that as soon as they left, my neighbor, who I was outside talking to in the beginning, came over, him and his girlfriend, and they said they would stay with me throughout the night so that I would not be alone. We, the cops left and we sat on my couch, and I just sat there in silence because I had nothing to say. Like, I didn't know what my next move was going to be. All I knew was that that is not where I wanted to be. That's not, a place I needed to be in. And they both sat on each side of me, and we all just sat there in silence. That later on that morning, I told them, I was like, I need to call my family. I have to call my dad. Before then, my father and I were actually in a not so good place. We were arguing all the time before I had moved to Arizona. And so him and I were not really on speaking terms, but I felt like I needed to call him because that's the person who I knew would be there for me. So I had called him, and my mom had answered the phone, and I was like, I need to talk to daddy. Where is he at? And so she's like, hold on. So she passed him the phone, and as soon as I heard his voice, I just started bawling. I told him what happened. My dad started screaming, and he started crying, and he was like, your brother and I were going to just give me a couple days. Make sure you go over to your mom's friend's house, because I had some family friends who lived there. So I packed up what I could in my car, drove over to their house, and waited for my dad to show up the next couple of days. I went back to my apartment where my dad did show, to go and pack up the rest of my stuff in his car. And I gave my notice to my apartment complex, because when I had tried to talk to them, that, it was against their, against their policy. But even though in their own statement, it says in case of, fear for your life, or, something, a major event, that they can remove people from, leases and all of that. But they basically didn't want to. They wanted me to be liable for everything that had happened. So I just gave them the keys and I left. The day that I left, it was July 4th. Driving back to Las Vegas, I remember seeing fireworks everywhere. And in that moment, that's when I knew I had my independence back, because I was being able to start over. I was able to see, my future just a little bit differently. But I was more happy that I was actually going home to my family where I belonged. And so that's the end of my story for that.
Well, we are just grateful that, you did get out, because,
Right.
so many women don't get out. So many women end up repeating the cycle or staying there, and not really being okay. And not
right. And I did repeat that cycle, because I ended up in 2 more domestic violence relationships after that. But this was the one that was like the catalyst of me not understanding who I was, because I was so, like I said, I was so wrapped up with trying to please these other people that I had never took the time to learn myself.
Right. And
I was too busy trying to fix them and their problems. And in turn, it backfired on me.
How much of do you think that played a part? The fact that you never really knew yourself, and you never really spent time with yourself, and developing yourself, and developing that, amazing self-love and self-worth. How much of that do you think plays into being
that played a whole lot, because as a military child, I moved from place to place to place. And the reason why I was so worried about trying to fix these men was because every time I moved, instead of, me, when I meet new friends, letting people see me for me, I didn't know how to do that. I was always trying to fit in. I was always trying to be that person that, everybody liked. I was, trying to make new friends, but yet I was trying to fit into where, how they were already being raised, because everyone else grew up together. They all know each other's quirks and stuff. And, I didn't get to see that. So I'm just trying to jump in and try to, be that puzzle piece of where can I put myself, instead of just allowing people to accept me for me. And so I never actually understood what it was to actually be Alana versus, you know, what everyone else would actually see me as.
Right. So since then, I'm gonna assume that you've spent time on who you are.
I have, yes.
And what life looks like on your terms, and you know, how you want it to be, and what means the most to you. When you went through that process of rediscovering and discovering in some ways you, how much did it free you from the victim and the survivor space?
I felt like a whole new person because, you know, growing up, people don't teach you what self-love is. Self-love is technically like a new term because if you think about how our parents were raised or how their parents were raised, you know, everything was about making sure the man is pleased, not how the mom or the grandmother is feeling. You know, she makes sure that the household's taken care of. You know, they are the last in line to be able to have what is necessary for them, but they're so busy making sure everybody else is okay that, you know, they don't think about themselves. And so we have to flip the script, you know, with that whole, you know, theory of, is the cup half full, half empty? You can't fill up other people's cup if your cup is empty, you know, all of that. You know, it's that same principle. We have to make sure that we are full of our own self-love and self-worth to be able to give it to other people. Because if we're not happy, we're not spreading that goodness elsewhere. We're not showing our best selves, and we're not really being authentic to ourselves, and we're not being loving to ourselves by giving everything that we have to someone else.
Exactly. Did you find, because I know a lot of us have found that when we got in touch with who we really are, right, and we started to seek out us first and foremost and love ourselves first and foremost, that not just our intimate relationships changed, but even our friendships, just kind of the whole circle of people that we were surrounded with changed. And we realized there was dysfunction in not just the bedroom, but there was dysfunction in kind of like all of our relationships.
All across the board, yeah. You know, like you said, your relationship with your friends changed, yes, because now you start to see people for actually who they are. You know, you don't see the wool, you know, that people are actually hiding behind. You're actually able to see them for their soul, not for what they look like on the outside. You know, your relationships become deeper. You have more meaning. You actually become a lot more joyous and happy. I get told a lot. They're like, Alana, you smile a lot. I'm like, because I have nothing to worry about right now. Like, life is good. You know, I don't like people that are upset all the time. So like when people are constantly being negative or they're having their own issues, I try to ask them, well, what in this situation can you find the positive of? And how can we build on that so that you're not dwelling on what happened in the past? Because the more you dwell on it, the more it's going to keep repeating itself. And we have to get out of that cycle to be able to see life differently. You know, we can't keep going back to our old same ways, because as the world knows, everything is in evolution. Everything is always evolving. You know, we have to evolve with the times. We can't be stuck. I mean, if we stayed stuck, you know, we would all still be listening to 8 tracks and cassette tapes, you know, not, MP3s and, you know, streaming live music and all of that. Like our world would be totally different. So we have to evolve. We have to learn, you know, what our definition of happiness is, and then thrive from there.
Exactly. And I think, you know, you kind of hit it on the head, and a lot of times we don't pay attention to it. We like to dwell on, like you said, oh my gosh, like this happened to me, and you know, they do these things to me, and we don't realize that like we're the common denominator, and the moment we change, change everything that is around us, you know, from our intimate partner relationships to our friendships to our work relationships. Like we have the power to really change and redirect and change up all of that. And that's something that I hope that you guys hear that are watching over and over again, how much power you actually have. Because I know when we were in the victim state, we felt like we had no power, right? Like he's beating me, he's controlling me, he's checking my odometer, like Alana said. They seem to have all the power. And the moment you take that power back, everything
have no use for it. Yeah.
Everything changes. And so that's what I really hope you heard from her story more than anything, is just how she had to get with her and she had to work on her and change her, and not because she deserved anything that happened to her, and not because, she did something that caused what happened to her to happen, but because she had the power to prevent it.
But you have to choose to have the power. You can't remain in that victim mode. Like you said, we have to choose our happiness. We have to choose what we see. We have to choose what we hear. We have to choose who we want to be connected to. We have that power to cut people off and use, like, the word no is a complete sentence. Okay. Tell people no all the time. And don't say but. You don't need a but. You don't need an and. Just no. And if people who know you and want to see you fulfilled in life will understand that your no is a meaning, because if you are trying to fill yourself up with self-love, not because you are in a negative space. You have to let people know that no is going to be your answer until you are ready to move on to that next phase.
Right, exactly. Well, I want to give you a second. I know you said a lot, right? And they should have gotten a whole bunch of nuggets. Like, I hope they picked them all up. But I want to give you a second to just take a moment and say whatever's on your heart to say for the woman or the man, there's men watching, who is in that survivor space. They're stuck in, I survived it. Like, I got out. Like, that's it. Like, that's all they have. And they haven't changed for themselves, and they haven't seen the people that they're surrounded by, and they haven't seen all the dysfunction that they're living in. Give them your thoughts, your encouragement, whatever it is that you want to share with them. I want to give you a moment to just do that.
Okay. So my first thought is, it is not your fault. It is not your fault. And it is not your fault. Because we blame ourselves for everything. Well, what if I did this differently? Well, what if I did this differently? And change our thinking, and tell yourself it is not your fault. It is not my fault. It is, a personal thing that this other person has issues with, and it has nothing to do with you. You are still whole, you are still loved, and you are still welcomed in this world. That's why you're still here. And trying to forgive yourself and forgive the past of everything that happens. I like to use the mantra, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. Because you're giving yourself that moment to grieve. You're giving yourself that the I'm sorry for, I'm sorry for putting myself through this. I'm sorry for putting other people through this. And I love you. You're telling yourself that you love you. You have to love yourself. Self-love is imperative. It's something that we all deserve. It's because self-love is not selfish. It's only selfish to people who do not value you. So once you start valuing yourself, you'll start to see other people who are going to either value you the same way you view yourself or not value. And then you have that choice to make. Should you accept those friendships that are devaluing you, or only allow yourself to have those friendships that add value to your pot? And just keep loving on you. Understand that you have a greater purpose in life. If you don't know what it is, you have to just do some deep soul searching. We all do. You have to sit in peace, sit in quiet, and just listen to your thoughts, listen to what it is that your soul is telling you. If you have to talk to God, talk to God. If you have to talk to a spiritual advisor, or somebody of a different denomination, then talk to them. Let them be your listening ear so that you can hear the answers for yourself within you. That's my advice. But like I said, going back to the beginning, it is not your fault. Make sure you love you. and see you in a better light so that everyone can see you for who you truly are.
Exactly. I love it. I hope you guys wrote down that mantra. Let me let her say it one more time in case you didn't. So say the mantra one more time.
It says, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you.
Hope you guys wrote it down so you can use it in your daily lives, because that's a great mantra just for everything, like just to repeat to yourself all the time when you're going through things. So thank you again, Alana, for joining us, for sharing your story, sharing your journey, and for most importantly, for thriving in spite of and because of. Like, I'm truly thankful and grateful that you are showing up in the world as a great, amazing woman, because that's exactly who you are. For those of you who are registered, thank you again for showing up and watching and hanging out with us for a little while. There are many, many more Thriver stories to come, so be on the lookout every Monday and Wednesday in your inbox, because we got something directly for you. And of course, as always, don't forget to share. Encourage other people to register so that they can get all the messages, all the golden nuggets that we are dropping. And don't remember, we are doing a fundraising campaign, and your donations matter. We are trying to change the lives of African Americans who are victims of domestic violence, but we need your help. So please help. And until next time you see me, it is Miss Jennifer Pink, and that is Alana. Say bye to Alana. And
bye, everyone.
Say bye. And for me, it is see you soon, because I will be back with another amazing Thriver. So until next time, bye-bye.